This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced. Well, good evening, folks. Fingers crossed you are actually hearing me out there in the land of the internet. Okay, sounds good. There you go. I'm very happy to welcome you all tonight, folks. Thank you, Sunshine Coast, for coming out tonight. We are at the Waterfront Hotel in Diddillibah. And tonight, we're not running full cameras and the full TV show. The Galactic Larrikins are keeping warm in Canberra tonight. They couldn't come up and push the buttons for me. So it's just going to be the basic show. But I tell you, folks, it's going to be one hell of a show. Tonight, we're going to speak with a man named Spiros. Spiros is a barrister who has had a great deal of success in Victorian courts of late. In fact, Spiros was the man who challenged Brett Sutton on the validity of COVID and proved that COVID doesn't exist. The government couldn't say anything. So without further ado, would you please welcome Spiros to our session? I'll try and bring him up. It doesn't seem to be coming up for some reason. That's going well. Spiros, can you hear us? His microphone is muted. Your microphone is muted, mate. I don't know if you can hear us or not. If you can unmute your mic. And I'll send him. Hey, there he is. You might have to unmute your microphone there, Spiros. It looks like it's still muted. I don't think we can hear you at the moment. Tap your ear, tapping me. Can't hear you. Can you hear me? I tell you what, I might just ring you on the phone. Oh, you're unmuted. And I think you've frozen. So part of the problem that we have with Spiros, folks, is Spiros lives in the mountains down in Victoria. And
can you hear me?
I'm pretty confident. Right. For some reason, we haven't quite got it working yet. There you go. You might have to turn your speaker down a bit, mate.
Yeah, I will. Hang on.
And I'm having no end of trouble now getting my bloody phone to link into this thing. Give me 1 second. It is the weirdest setup in history tonight. This was working perfectly 2 hours ago. And I'm looking for my Bluetooth. Disconnect. Reconnect. Have we got you this time, Spiros? No? God almighty. Yes, he is. He's doing a great job talking. We're just not doing much by the way of hearing, which is a bit disappointing on my side. Can you mime it? Spiros, this is going to get very technical now for some reason because I'm going to put the phone up to my face and hopefully the speaker is going to get picked up on the microphone. Can you say hello to the audience for me, please?
Hello, audience. Can everybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes. There you go. The people are very happy to hear from you. So as I explained in my introduction to you, Spiros, you are the gentleman who took Brett Sutton and co to court and was able to prove that the spicy jab, or more particularly the spicy cough, was not valid. You were able to prove or disprove everything that they were saying. Do you want to take us through that initially before we get into talking about the trust and the other bits and pieces?
Sure. Well, here's the thing. It's one thing to know the truth, and it's another thing to prove it. That's just the way it goes. Now, in a court of law, no one cares about anything other than what you can prove. And so when I first got involved in this a couple of years ago, it dawned on me that the whole thing just didn't sit right with me. I didn't buy this nonsense about a global, magical virus that was spread by a bat that came out of a cave and bit somebody, and then they walked around, on a full moon and bit someone else, and then they infected them. I know this story, I said, this is the oldest story in history, except it used to be a bat in Transylvania, and today it's a bat in Wuhan, wherever the hell that is.
Yeah.
I don't even know which Transylvania is. So for me, it's just another a magical place somewhere far away.
Sure.
But once I got it in my head that the whole thing was nonsense, I issued proceedings against Brett Sutton and his employers, because I thought, we can talk about it all day, but nobody's listening. That the best thing to do is take it into a courtroom and actually run the case. And do it slowly and do it methodically, and just pick every single concept that these fellas have come up with and challenge it. Everything from what is this PCR test to exactly how did you determine there was a virus? Just the most common sense questions that can't seem to be answered in the media. I thought, well, the courtroom does that. We do that every day of the week. No one's interested in the nonsense. So that's where I came from. So what I did on the point that you asked is I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of things that concerned me. And so I thought, well, I'll just ask him. I'll get him on the witness box and I'll get him to answer the questions under oath. And that's what I did. Now, the issue about the virus, the simple question I asked was this. I said, prove the virus exists. I'm not just going to believe that there's a vampire. Prove there's a vampire. Prove the virus exists. So I asked him, has anybody in your department at all ever actually seen a single drop of this virus? And the answer is no. And I'm like, that's right. Now, I knew it was no, because you know how we work. We never ask a question we already don't know the answer to.
Sure.
We just want him to say it. So at no point in me saying it, I need him to say it.
Yeah.
So, I knew there wasn't a virus, because before I got into the hearing, we did our research. And one of the simplest things you can do is you just do a Freedom of Information inquiry. And a very good friend of mine in Tasmania did exactly that. He did a Freedom of Information inquiry and he got back a reply. And that's just great when they reply. It saves me making it up.
Yeah.
Because it's there. And the letter said, nobody, I mean, I'm paraphrasing because it was a long letter, but the letter said, nobody in any department that they were aware of had any evidence of the virus, any DNA that we could check, double check, nothing at all. So knowing that there wasn't any, no evidence of it, then it was simply a matter of getting him on the stand and saying, prove it. You say there's a virus, what evidence do you have? And the nonsense that got out of the guy, which I still can't remember a word he said because it went on for 15 minutes, but the nonsense that I got out of him was, we're reliably informed by the World Health Organization, blah, 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 blah. I go, right, so no, that'd be a no. You could have just said no, but then we had to go on for 15 minutes about 100 reasons why, you couldn't just say, I've never seen it,
Yeah, they often feel that the longer answer is better than the truthful one for some reason.
Well, we have a rule in cross-examination if I give away some secrets. You never answer with more words than the question you're asked. It's just a trick. So if the barrister asks you a question and you give, in your answer, you give more words, I'll give you an example. If I was to ask, did you kill such and such? Oh, that's 5 words. Did you kill such and 6 such?
Yep.
Did you kill such and such, right?
No, I was out that day. I was off fishing with mates, and we'd driven there and drunk beers. It was a long day.
Yeah,
And
you did it. You did it. You did it every day of the week. I'm saying you did it. I know you did it.
Yep.
Because you used to it. I tell you what an innocent man says. No.
That's right. Yep.
That's it. Because when you're innocent, you don't have to prove it. You just say no.
Yeah.
And that's what they never get. These crims never get it. They always think they can talk their way out of it. And every question I asked my dear friend Mr. Sutton came with a 15-minute answer. We got to the point where I felt like doing this. Like, hang on, let me have a drink.
It's all right. I tell you what, seeing you're doing it, I'll have one as well. All right.
Yeah, and then I'll be saying, hang on, let's just hit my pizza while you answer. Sorry, I'm listening. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, go on. And then what happened? Oh, right, yeah. I mean, it was an absolute debacle. I mean, the guy, if I asked him, is your name Brett Sutton? He would, I don't even know what he would have said. I mean, today, Brett Sutton, well, you know, I was christened and born on the day of the third month of the third year under a strong man facing self, you know, in the full moon. Oh, what the hell does that mean? Yes or no, mate?
Yeah. They don't like giving those sorts of straight answers.
No. So the long answer to your very short question was there is no virus.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's at the point now where I feel stupid even saying it. 2 years ago, I was the devil for suggesting such a thing.
Yeah.
2 years later, the world has caught up, and now I'm just another bloke who's repeating we all know that's true.
Well, you're not just another bloke, though, because you're the bloke that actually got the finding in your favour. I mean, we discussed this the other day. You basically told me how it planned out, and you used section, was it 13 of the Constitution, second paragraph?
No, we're talking now. You've jumped onto. Look, there are a lot of things. I questioned everything. Now, when I say let's get something straight. The trial was held 18 weeks ago. I've been waiting 18 weeks. I'm probably going to be waiting another 18 weeks for the judge to give his ruling, if I even get it. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get it. I'm sure that will come and it'll arrive, you know. But at the moment, the only thing we know for sure is the answers we got in the courtroom.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, it was closed. There were, except for the people that were involved, nothing got out. We haven't put a transcript out there. All that I've done is put my final submissions, which ran for 35 pages, and spelled the evidence out. For those in the audience who don't know what final submissions are, after you run the case, you get a chance to speak. You sum up the case. You know, it's the point where in the movies, you address the jury. Members of the jury, you've heard the evidence, blah, blah, blah. It's clear that my client is innocent, you know, that sort of thing. They're called final submissions. So when you do your final submissions, you summarise the case. So I printed my final submission, I filed them, summarised it, and I have released them to anybody who's interested in them. So anyone who's interested can get a copy of my final submissions, and there it is in point form, you know, the way it should be, court quality, step by step, paragraph by paragraph on each heading. You know, is there a virus? Is there a law that can even allow it? And what you did is you jumped to my most important point.
Sorry.
Yeah. So do you want me now to explain my most important point?
I would love you to explain your most important point.
Right. This is the most important point. The most important point of all was from the get-go, coming from my background, I know something. And I'm going to tell you what I know. I know that I live in a free country and that I'm a free man. Now, you hear that all the time, and I don't think people understand what that means. We live in a free country, and I'm a free man. What that means is every law, legitimate law, has to be in my favour. You cannot have a law under the Constitution that is not in favour of the human being, because that's the whole point of it. The whole point of the legal system, and I'm talking now, I'm jumping again, but I'm talking about the original point of the legal system, was not to write law for you, but it was to write law for you, in your favour. That's what the word "for" meant way back in 1901. Not what they're using it for now. Today we think it means, oh, this parking law is for you, and this speeding law is for you. I'm like, no. What it's supposed to be is in my favour. And if a law is not in my favour, it's voided according to the Constitution.
Right.
And that's the least. That's the legal system that I understand. So
that's a very important point for people to understand. I think that how do you go about challenging that?
Oh, here's the best part about it. That's how you challenge it. I'll give you an example. I think actually a real example. What I did was I thought, hang on a minute. He's what's this guy doing? Who the hell does he think he is? What is the chief health officer? And what's that? Like, what's that? Is that God?
Seems to be.
Well, he thinks he is. But what I know is that since I know that the laws came from God, and I know that on earth God left a representative, and as I've told you and I have spoken, we know who the representative is. As far as Australians are concerned, God's representative on earth is our Queen, God rest her soul, because she was coronated by the bishop. That makes her God's representative. She will only pass a law if it's a law unto God, and we only have to obey a law if she passed it, because she is God. You can't sue the Queen. She's God.
Yeah.
Only my Queen can make a law that binds me. So I'm thinking, my Queen would make a law that wasn't in my favour. This is nonsense. And that's when the wheels started to kick in, because I've been retired for 20 years. Like, I've been, you know what I've been doing, feeding chickens and raising pigs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm out of that world. I'm out of that world. I was out of that world. I'm back. But so I thought to myself, there can't be a law that allows this monkey head to do what he's doing to us. There can't be. So I looked into it, and I was right.
Yep.
So when I got him on the witness stand, I said, Mr. Sir, on what authority do you do the things you've done? The lockdown, all the things you've done. You know what they are, millions to fix. On what authority do you do that? And he said, under the Health and Wellbeing Act of 2008. I said, I see. And I had a copy of it. Everybody did. That's how court is run. So I took him to the Health and Wellbeing Act of 2008. I said, I've got a copy in front of me. You've got a copy in front of you. Judge's got a copy in front of them. I said, in order for that act to have any authority over me, it needs to be assented to by the Queen first, doesn't it? And the answer is yes. Never ask a question you don't know the answer. You don't know the answer to the question. The answer is yes. No law in this country binds us unless our Queen has signed off on it.
Yep.
That's called royal assent. If it hasn't received royal assent, it's not a law. You can drive as fast as you want. You can park wherever you want. It's not a law. It can't be heard in a court of law because the Queen is the court of law. And you can only listen to her laws. So I thought, there can't be a law that lets him do it. But he thinks he's got one. So when I got him in the courtroom, I said, what's the law you think that's on your side? And he pointed to the 400-page thick document called the Health and Wellbeing Act of 2008. And I said, let's go to page 1. And we did. And I said, can you show me there, I'm paraphrasing, can you show me there where it's got the Queen's seal on? And we waited. And I had a drink. And then I had a bite of my pizza.
The court obviously provides well for you.
Well, it was, we were locked in there. We were allowed to be fed. And I said, take your time, no rush. It's on page 1. You don't even have to read the bloody thing because I know he hasn't. I'll sleep on
Yeah.
it. Anyway, it's never been as bad. And I said, let's get something straight. Am I correct that the act that you relied upon to do all of the things you've done has never been assented to by our Queen? He couldn't answer.
Yeah.
And then we broke for lunch. Believe it or not, the bell saved him. An hour later, we come back. The first thing his lawyers do is they jump in and they give evidence from the bar, which is rather unusual. But they jump in and they say, Deputy President, we've got something we want to say. Mr. Colodius, ask the question. Was the act assented to? Mr. Sutton couldn't answer. But in the break, we did some research and we found it was assented to in 2010.
In 2010.
And I thought, you can't be that stupid because they walked right into my trap.
Yep.
So I said, excellent. I said, but who assented to it? And they said, the Queen. And I said, which Queen? And they said, what? I said, which Queen? Mine or yours? Because it has to be mine.
Yeah.
If it wasn't mine, then we're going to have some trouble because it doesn't bind me, mate, unless my Queen did it. And that's when the mic was I was almost ready to, I was almost ready to drop the mic and walk out of the room. But I had made one more joke. I said, no, not yet. I got one more joke before I drop this mic. I said, I finished with you, Mr. Sutton. So his lawyer, so this is the set the stage of what happened. His lawyers have just come in after the break and they've announced proudly that they've defeated me because the Queen did assent. Absolutely 100%. Problem was, they didn't tell the judge which Queen. Now, unfortunately for them, I knew which Queen. I said, all righty. I said, Your Honour, the Queen that they're talking about is not the question I asked. I asked whether my Queen had approved that law or that 400-page document, which she hasn't. The approval came from their Queen, Queen of Australia, which I'm sure she's a lovely lady, probably has kelpies, but my Queen has 40 that lives in Buckingham Palace. It could be Molly Meldrum, Queen of Moomba. I don't know who the Queen of Australia is. I don't know if it's Priscilla, Queen of I said this nonsense. It could be Priscilla, Queen of For all I know, I don't know who she is, I think. But I know who she's not. And I can prove it right now in this courtroom definitively. And that was it. That's when they said, go ahead. I said, thank you. So I said, please pick up the 400-page document, which they did. I said, Your Honour, flick to section 13. And we flick. Everybody flicks. And off we go reading this Health and Wellbeing Act. And then we get to section 13. It's only about 2 or 3 pages. It didn't flick very far. It's only about 2 or 3 pages. It's a very thick document. 13 is like a number. So I said, here we are at number 13. And bugger me, paragraph C, section 13 of the Health and Wellbeing Act drops the following mic right in the centre of the stage. And I'm going to paraphrase. I got it here. I should read it, but I'm going to paraphrase. It says, it's only one sentence, and it says this. For the avoidance of doubt. Now, I love it when it's because anything that comes after that is going to be awesome. Right?
Absolutely.
So they actually wrote it for the avoidance of doubt. So there can be no doubt about what they're intending with this sentence, right? For the avoidance of doubt, any reference to the Crown in this document refers to a body corporate. And I'm like, it'll be
yeah. Thank you and good night.
I'm like, a body corporate? Excuse me? Not a little lady, partial to corgis, living in Buckingham Palace. No, a corporation. Oh, that's the point of Australia is the corporation. And I thought, thank you. And that was it. Then I needed an encore because I'd already walked off the stage at that point. We didn't have any better jokes. That was it.
So was the microphone still rolling around the floor, around probably where the judge's jaw was at that stage as well?
Well, I'll tell you what the judge did say. And I've never heard this before. Probably never will again. But she stopped me and she said, Mr. Claudius, if you're correct, can I even hear this now? And I said, we have a dilemma. And she said, carry on. I said, right. And I carried on for another 2 days. What else can I do? I'm locked in.
Mate, you were there. Why not?
I was there. I might as well carry on. Right, let me throw the rest of the garbage to sink. What else have I got? I'm an idiot, You know, he's got funny polka dot underwear. Anything I could throw at him, I threw at him. But that was my favourite one. And I guess that's what the message for tonight. The message for tonight is this. In my world, day one, lesson one, my mentor, first day in law, question everything.
Yeah.
Accept nothing. The law, prove it. If you say you have a warrant, show me. If you say you're authorised, show me your diploma, show me your documents. Challenge everything. That is the inquisitive mind. When we simply accept whatever we hear, then we're relying on a belief and not a knowledge.
Yeah.
And you make your decisions on beliefs, they're going to be wrong 90% of the time. The wise man makes his decision on knowledge.
Yes.
And knowledge only comes from experience. You can't read knowledge in a book. That's belief.
Exactly.
That's someone else's knowledge that they're passing on to you. That's education. There's a lot of other words, but they're not knowledge.
Yep.
And you always know if it's not knowledge and if it's something else because every word is spelled different. And as long as they spell them differently, there are different words. I'll let that one really quick.
Absolutely, yeah.
So knowledge and belief are not the same thing. And the sooner I get that message out there, the sooner people say, got it.
Yeah, so that's one of the tenets of our Magna Carta 1215 show. People must know the difference between knowledge and belief. And Fitzroy Sterling, who runs that, tells a very similar story about knowledge and belief. A fella says he's going to jump off a cliff and fly, and 30 people turn up that day to watch him jump off the cliff, all believing that he's going to jump off the cliff and fly. That's belief. When he jumps off the cliff and falls to his death, that becomes knowledge.
It's knowledge.
Everybody knows he's full of shit.
That's exactly right. I know it's crazy, but that's exactly right. But if you think about it, if we all think about it now, how much of our day do we simply accept as knowledge when really it's just a belief? It's just a belief we're going to get home on time to watch the footy. It's a belief we're going to have chicken for dinner. These are all beliefs, and it's incredible when you start to think about it, just how much of everyday life we simply believe is going to happen. And only at the end of the day can we actually say, we know what happened today.
That smiling mainstream media news presenter face that's, giving you all that information every night you go home. That's belief. The knowledge is they're full of shit. But I think the people who are accepting that knowledge is growing. I think we're getting a few more people on the bandwagon. So you've had the mic drop moment. The judge has had a big gulp. They've let you talk for another 2 days, and then the judge has said, well, I'm going to go away and have a think about this, and I'll let you have my ruling. But like you said, that was 18 weeks ago, and you don't expect it for another 18. Are they allowed to hold on to a ruling for as long as they like, and maybe until the media area is maybe a little clearer of the static that it has in it at the moment, and they might get some reporting on it later? I know the court's not looking for that, but they're trying to hide it as much as possible. But like you say, it's going to have to be released at some stage, and surely with that mic drop moment, it's going to have to fall in your favour.
Well, here's the thing. It's a simple question, but such a complicated answer.
I'm good at that.
Well, now I'm using more words than the question. What does that tell you? He's lying.
Right. Well, that's the end of Spiros tonight, folks.
Biggest liar in the street. How many words did he use? But to be fair, I'm doing it because I respect the show, and I'm trying to give the most correct answer because people are listening, and I don't want to go off with a whole time.
Sure.
But here's the funny thing. It doesn't matter whether the judge in any case or a jury comes in with a verdict. What matters is that you and I know the truth. Because if someone reads, because a trial is supposed to be in front of 12 of us.
Yeah.
And really 12 of us is supposed to represent all of us. And so right now, if everybody in this room heard the evidence and made up their own mind, that's what democracy is. It doesn't matter if they think right one way or the other. It doesn't bloody matter because, what did I say to you once? Freedom is not just for us, it's also for the people who make mistakes. They're also free. Even the bad guys are free.
True.
I mean, it's free for all or free for none. It's free for all or free for none. And so it doesn't matter. I know a lot of people say to me, what's going on, as if I need the permission of the court. That's not why I went there. I went there because it's under oath and it's recorded. And it's hard to get the truth if you're out in the public arena where you've got no accountability for your answers. But when you drag a person into a courtroom and you present them with a question and answer, whatever comes out of their mouth is under oath. Now, whether they tell the truth or not makes no difference in the court case, as long as they answer. Because if they lie, you bury them.
Yep.
And if they tell the truth, you bury them. You're gonna bury them. so it's just a choice of how you're gonna do. Which way you're gonna do it. So it makes no difference. It makes no difference to us if one judge decides yes, Spiros was right. Except it makes a legal difference because if this case comes in our favour, then everybody in Australia will issue a proceeding for damages because the whole thing was a fraud. And that's why I'm going to wait another 18 weeks because I know what I was doing. I mean, you detonated the nuclear bomb. I'm like, there's no one bigger than Brett Sutton. He was the biggest guy I could fight.
Yep.
I mean, right, we went to court against APRA as well. Well, that's okay. That went well. But the medical board are less than him. He's the biggest. Then there's the medical board, and then there's everybody after that, which I'll leave for you guys to mop up. But
we're coming for him. Don't worry.
There's plenty behind me ready to mop up the little one.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you for the effort that you put in on that because all Australians owe you a huge debt of gratitude for exposing that in Victoria. We all believe that the Victoria is the head of the snake. But could your arguments be used against the health ministers in every state? Could this essentially be argued in every state and territory of Australia?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the path that I took. Look, this is my world, and so I used the weapon I could use. You've got the media, I don't have the media. So you use the weapon that's really comfortable in your hand.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I came from a background in litigation. I spent 20 years in that life. It was all commercial litigation. It was all contract law, which is exactly what this is, which is why I found it. I found it because I knew what to look for. It was a contract, and there wasn't one. There was no contract. And so that's how I won. It wasn't criminal. It wasn't treason. I mean, there might be treason there, but I didn't go that far. I said, no, this is a contract. We all have a contract with our Queen. She protects us with the Navy, an Army, and her Air Force. And that's why we're not all eating rice for dinner.
Yep.
Because we're protected. But in return for which, We honour her. We fight a war to protect her and her land. And that's the oath, that's the accord the people of Australia had with the Crown of England. And that's why I say to everybody, if my Queen made a law, I would honour it. But all of you knucklehead corporations who think you have laws, a guy like me who specialises in contract law found your contract, worked out it hadn't been signed, and I know what that means in every day of the week in a courtroom.
Yep.
Every day of the week in a courtroom. And what did I tell you when we spoke originally? The biggest contract ever written in this country, was in 1901.
Yep.
And it was signed by the two biggest blokes on the two biggest powers of the day, the United Kingdom, Her Majesty, and the people of Australia. And we entered into that contract, and my kids are bound by it, and so are yours, and so are hers. And even when Queen Victoria passed and King came in and another king came in and then Queen Elizabeth and now another king, well, guess what? You can't break the contract. You know the rules. Once it's signed, can't be changed, can't be broken, can't be changed.
Yep.
We can't change that contract. And that's what keeps us safe. Problem is, nobody knows this.
Yes,
So
our education is lacking in this regard generally, isn't it? Is there a reason, do you think, that they don't teach us this?
Oh, yeah,
Or is it just you don't want us all to be lawyers like you?
No, it's by design. It's by design. I mean, they stopped teaching us all the good stuff when they pulled this con off, around about 1960 onwards, when this scam started. They stopped educating the people. Latin was no longer taught in school, so none of us can read. We all think we can read. We all think we speak English, but you'd be surprised how many people out there that don't speak the English. You know?
Yep.
The English, like I just said to you, a simple thing like, remember I said to you, the simple phrase, by the people, for the people, doesn't mean what you think it means. Well, I know you know what it means now, but it doesn't mean what most people think it means.
Yep.
By the people, for the people, in 1901 meant something completely different, and this is what it meant. The word for, as I said earlier, did not mean what we think it means today. It meant those for, those against. In other words, it had to be for you. So it was laws written by you, for you, for in your favour.
Yep.
Every law must be for the benefit of a person. You can't write laws that hurt people. They become void according to our Constitution. The biggest contract ever signed says you can't write a law that hurts a person.
So, Spiros, clearly you are the smartest barrister in Australia, because there are plenty of people. In fact, there's a gentleman in this room here who spent over $1 million with barristers, managed to get a win and then still lose the case on appeal and wind up with $1 million bill out of it. What you're saying here is we could all essentially do this with a little bit of our own knowledge. Is that right?
I issued proceedings against Brett Sutton's crew. It cost me $143.
Wow.
And 3 days, a couple of bottles of Prosecco, and I ended up people. I mean, I had to eat, I had to drink. So,
yes, I'd hate for you to lose your voice.
no, so I mean, I know that people spend money. That's a different conversation. Here's the truth. Every Australian has an absolute right to issue a proceeding by themselves. And you don't need any more brains. What you do need is knowledge and education. Now, you can't walk in to a gunfight with a knife. You're going to lose. So my attitude is that's where the real problem. The real problem is if I trained someone for a week, they could run their case, because you can hear how I speak. I'm not, I can do my lords and the ladies, but there's no need for it. simple English, just simple English, but it comes from decades of education. So that while I sound really simple and what I'm saying sounds really, really basic, it's rooted in some of the most phenomenal documents you've ever seen, written by some serious gurus of their day, decent human beings. You know, the sort of people we should be teaching kids, you know, you should be learning about them in school instead of, you know, whatever they're teaching them today. So my feeling is everyone can do it, but should they do it? The answer is probably not. Because, you know, you're a baker, you're a truck driver, you're great at driving a semi-trailer, but you can't, you know, you don't have a thesaurus in your brain.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and we talked about it. I said to you that it's one thing to find Excalibur, but it's another thing to pull it out of the rock and know how to use it. And so everyone's got their own Excalibur. I got mine. I found it. I pulled it out of the rock and I started swinging like a madman, right? Because I'm like, take off as many hits as you can.
Yeah.
Until they take me down, you know, which will happen any day. So
yeah, please God, please God. Well, let's move on, because there is a great deal of exciting things that you're involved with, and let's start with the Public Trust of Victoria. I know it's probably not the most important thing that you're working on at the moment. That would be the community councils, and I want to talk about that as well, because there's a lot of interest everywhere I've travelled. In fact, I've got people in Singleton, Sydney, Katoomba, every city in Queensland up along the eastern seaboard, and a whole heap of people in Western Australia, Northern Territory, very interested in learning how to set up this People's Trust, and to follow Darren Bergwerf's example that you were heavily involved with setting up, and that was the Community Council of Frankston. I now understand that there are half a dozen, maybe more, that are starting around Victoria shortly. This really is a marvellous initiative. Well, maybe we will start with the council, because I know that there are people very interested in learning how they set this up. What are the guidelines that are required? Can you furnish us with a to-do list so that I can post it on our website for people that want to be able to follow this path? Can you outline the process for us?
This is my favourite project. Thank you for asking. Okay, here's the craziest idea. People run Australia. Now, if I'm right about that, and I usually am, I thought, how far can I take that? Can I actually empower actual people to start running Australia? And so I do what all good Spartans do. We go and talk to the Oracle before we embark on a battle.
Of course.
That's just the way of us Spartans, right? So being a Spartan, born and bred, I went and I consulted the Oracle, and I said, look, I got this idea, came to me out of nowhere. People run Australia, and could the people just take back the country without a drop of blood being spilled, or marching in the streets, or getting pepper sprayed, or any of that stuff? Because I'm not into any of that. Unless I'm pepper sprayed, that's fun, but not getting pepper sprayed. I don't like that.
No, I'm not keen, no.
No, I like the spraying food. Anything comes out of a can is fine. But
I don't know, beer's all right.
Yeah, that's it. Anything out of a can is fine. But so coming up with that, well, conceiving that idea, I consulted some gurus, some serious brains, much more talented than I, and they showed me. They said, not only can you do it, we'll show you how to do it. And so then I sucked all that up for a couple of days and sponged that all in. And then I thought, I can do this. And this is what I came up with. What stops any suburb at all from getting together and electing their own mayor? And bugger me, the answer is nothing. So I said, right, if nothing's stopping me, then why don't I do it? So I did. So I got together a bunch of people. Bugger it, just go to Frankston, all good stuff happening out of Frankston.
Yeah.
You know, you got a whole bunch of weird ass people. So pick a place where they just do anything. I went to Frankston and I found some people in Frankston, and I said, how'd you like to be the mayor? And I said, yeah, that sounds all right. What do I have to do? Oh, not much. A bit of shaking of the hands and kissing of the babies. What mayor? I can do that. And I said, that's it. So we got a group together. There's about 100 of them. I mean, I joke, but it wasn't like this. We got about 100 people together. We voted in a mayor. Darren, I'm proud to announce, is the new mayor of the People's Council of Frankston.
Wonderful.
We voted in a treasury because, there's money involved. So you've got to have a treasury, someone in charge of the cash. And we voted in a litigation department. No surprises for who got the vote for that. And bingo, we had our first council meeting and the council started. And here's the craziest part about it. It's an actual legitimate council because it complies with all of the constitutional requirements of the council, whereas the council in Frankston at the moment is a corporate council. It's a company. It's not our council. They're selected, not elected. And I'm like, but we're elected. We elected our mayor. You selected your guy. You're not working for us at all. That's bloody obvious. I think we've all worked that out, So no prizes for that. So in short, here's the simple fact. Every single suburb could gather enough interested people together. You need a minimum of 3, and then it goes up to 5, 7, odd numbers. Otherwise, you can...
You vote lock.
Yeah, exactly. You get vote lock. So you always keep an odd number of numbers. It can be 11 people. I don't care. As many as you want. It's your council. No rules.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, you make them up, right? Whoever the mayor is makes up the rules.
Sorry, I just dropped the phone. I was so shocked.
The way it works is you vote in your council. You have to have a constitution. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Even a council has to have a constitution. I'm not talking about the 1901. Of course, you adopt that because that's an easy. You say the phrase, "We adopt the Constitution of 1901," which means all of that becomes your constitution. Plus, we like to add, and then you add whatever you want to it. Like, our council will never heal the council. Whatever, the rules of your. I mean, if it's a bikey town, everyone must have a Harley Davidson. That'll be your constitution. No mayor is allowed to sit who hasn't ridden a Harley for, minimum 6 months. That type of shit. So it's as simple as that. If it's a hippie town, everybody has to eat mungos. Whatever your constitution is, that's the constitution of your suburb. And you elect your mayor, and then you start calling your meetings, and people come, and you supply lamington and tea, and everybody has a bloody great time, and everyone gets a vote because you count every hand in the room and you pass decisions.
So it's not just the councillors' vote that counts. If you've got a room full of people from that suburb attending their local council, community council meeting, everybody gets a vote.
It gets better than that. You're spot on, but I'm going to put a cherry on it. Anybody who attends can also act as a proxy for as many other of his mates who said, listen, mate, we can't make it, but can you vote for us as well? So when you actually put it down, you're going to show up hands of like 1,000 people, but 36 people putting their hands up because, it's like the spokesman of the footy club. Speaks for all of the people in the footy club.
So essentially you could elect a member from every street. Okay, that member canvasses his street. How do you feel about this particular issue? And then they turn up at the council meeting in me and Smith Street, and the people in the 40 people that live in that street all vote yay or nay.
Welcome to your new world order.
How's that sound, folks? Sounds a lot like the people taking it back to me.
Yeah, mate, that's what you got to do, and you don't need to march. We've already got the numbers. You know what we need? Some decent people. I was raised in a village. We only had 100 people in our village. My grandma raised me. We didn't have power, electricity, none of that nonsense. And we
had a lot of legal books, though.
There's nothing else to do. And by the way, all jokes aside, I'm Spartan. I'm a Spartan male. We only have 2 jobs in Sparta. Not now because we forgot all that shit.
Yeah.
But in the good old days, in my great whatever granddad's day, you only had 2 jobs as Spartan male.
Yeah.
You could, because from the age of 8, you went to military college and you never went back to your mother. So we have a bond with our mums because we lost them at the age of 8. So Greek boys and their mums, that's where it comes from. The Greek boys and their mums is the umbilical cord is never broken.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's true, but it's crazy.
It's great.
But as a Spartan male, you only have 2 jobs, and one of them is you're allowed to educate. You know, you're allowed to read and become learned, and you're allowed to fight, and you're not allowed to do anything else because that's all the Spartan male was allowed to do. The women ran everything. No women's lived in Sparta. No need for it. Everything was run by women. Every business was run by females. To this day, you know, we Greeks, we sit at a coffee shop playing with the bees while the women are running everything.
And didn't Greece go broke a couple of years ago? I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you give the money to the women, right? But they spend
I can tell you, every woman in Greece has got a really good handbag, though.
yeah, well, that's it, mate. They're going down, but in style.
Absolutely. Well, this community council is something that's really going to take off. But my father used to work in local council. He was a shire secretary, so you could say he knew the beast quite well, I guess. They were funded by state government. Where will funding come? You said that money is involved. That's why you need treasury and whatnot involved in the council. Where does the funding for this come from? Because the state government aren't going to award the Frankston Community Council or any other community council a great deal of money to go off and collect the rubbish or patch roads or, you know, do the things that councils are supposedly meant to be doing. I'm not saying they are, but the things they're meant to be doing. How will that work?
Well, the logical answer is that the people of the town contribute to the town. Now, to give you a practical example of it working, in the last 20 years, I mean, I know I joke that I feed chickens and raise sheep. I do because I like animals. But I also have been a property developer, which is what I've spent my time doing. And I have a development, and in one of my developments, it's a gated community. It has 68 townhouses in it, 200 odd people. In that community, I am the sheriff, I am the mayor, and everything that's paid for in that community is paid for by the people who live in the community, and we call it body corp fees. Now, how many of us live in high rises? I mean, I lived in South Yarra for a long time, and I lived in a high rise.
Yep.
And every year, I contributed $5,000 or $7,000 to my body corp fees or my owner's corp fees. And the gymnasium was always working, the swimming pool was always clean, the saunas worked, the elevators worked. There was a manager on the ground floor, which is basically your police officer who kept the peace. And I'm thinking, come on, guys, we already do this. It's just right in front of your face. We already have communities living with their own police force, their own mayor. It's just that you dial the number and that front desk picks it up and says, yes, there's a light out on, to level number 6, and then somebody fixes it, and we all contribute. And at the end of the day, that's what made South Yarra livable, because it had a lot of rich people who contributed a lot of money and planted a lot of trees. And other suburbs that didn't have that, like Brooklyn or the Bronx or places around the world where people don't, where they don't, and then you live in the environment that you're prepared to work to keep.
Yep.
But having said that, the other thing I should say is that there's a thing in the community called community. And sometimes when you just have a meeting and you ask the community, look, can anybody volunteer a couple of hours to look after the kindergarten for 2 hours? You might find a whole bunch of retired people who'd love to spend 2 hours free of charge, come and play with some kids and do something great. And someone else might say, oh, look, I used to be a gardener before I was retired. Could I do some gardening? And you're like, bingo, give this man a rake and send him out into the suburbs. And all of a sudden, the community looks after the community, and you're like, come on, that's too easy to do. So I get that question a lot, but it just seems to me it never got raised in my community because there's 250 people who live in a gated community, and they just, whenever something goes wrong, they pick up the phone, and if I don't do it, somebody else does, because we live in a community. So the solutions are as varied as the people that make up the community.
So the body corporate idea, I'm on board with that. I understand how that can work, and I agree with the principle that you've got your own policeman downstairs at the desk. I've had experience with body corporate. They can be little fiefdoms of their own, and I don't get along well with fiefdoms. In fact, I can give you the name of a body corporate that will remember me really well. I don't think I'll ever let me back in one, but so within body corporates, there are those retirees, if you like, who get heavily involved in the running of those body corporates, and you find a small committee develops that starts issuing local rules, and then your local policeman starts enforcing the local rules. And then what happens if you're living in that development and they decide that you've all got to be jabbed with the sticky dart, and you say, no, I don't, I won't. So how does that going to work in your body corporate type of scenario?
Well, on a positive note, it's the same way we're all protected now from the people you've just described already exist in our community. I went to bat against one of them, right? Who's basically behaving exactly like that and thinking he has absolute power. What we're protected by is the comments I made at the beginning. This is a free country and I'm a free individual. And if I'm a free individual, you've got no place telling me what to do. And nobody has. Therefore, in a free community, you can't impose your will on somebody else. Yeah. This is another part of the problem with the way we're raised. Whatever happened to the morals? Where's the moral class at school where you teach kids right from wrong, or even in the media? And so right now, I know what I'm like. I just want to be left alone. I don't care what my neighbour's doing. But if my neighbour does something that harms me, then my neighbour will need to deal with that, because that's going to be an issue. But if what they're doing does not harm me, then all's fair. And that is a very fundamental understanding of human rights, and that's what, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. I said God made the laws.
Yep.
And so you can find your answer in 10 laws that somebody else better than me wrote. And that's where it is. Do unto others as you do it. Do no harm.
Yep.
Do no harm. Do not covet your neighbour's horse, ass or something. Depends how cute her ass is. I don't know. It's a good one. It's in there.
We know you like animals. You must be a connoisseur.
Yeah. So that's my long answer to your short question, is that the solution is that you can't impose your will on another human being, because that makes you every bit as bad as the monster we just slayed.
Yeah.
We just simply slayed the monster, put on his pants, and now we're the monster. And that's just dumb, right? It's better if we say, no, every person is free. If you want to walk around with funny looking shoes, you're free to walk around with funny looking shoes. The fact that I don't like them, that's just my opinion. We all have one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to have that philosophy in your heart in the first place, otherwise none of this works. If people do this for power or control, it starts with the wrong feeling, it ends with the wrong result. You've got to start with the right thing in your heart. And I begin with the nonsense that I'm free and we're all free. Therefore, go and live your life and don't interfere with mine. And you know what? I don't see any reason why you would bother me.
No, exactly right.
I can't think of a reason why you living your life would bother me. But a typical example would be, if you like to light a fire in your backyard every day, I don't have a problem. But if the smoke keeps blowing into our house and we're all gassed, now you have a problem, because that's called a tort. That you're causing me harm.
Yep.
And you're really not allowed to cause me harm, because I'm not causing you any harm.
Yep. And that's pretty much the tenets of Magna Carta 1215. Do no harm, cause no loss. Well, like you say, the 10 Commandments are all encapsulated in pretty much just a few things. I think we'll get onto the reason that a lot of people have expressed interest in learning about. I'm sure that people are interested in learning about the People's Trust because it is a way for them to actually fight back from an unjust fine or an unjust bill that they've been sent. Can you explain to me how the People's Trust of Victoria has been set up, and more particularly, it's been running now for a little while. Have you had any interaction with authorities about it?
Okay, the trust was set up. There's stuff involved, so we learned the other stuff. The trust was the very first thing. I had an idea, and I encapsulated it in the saying of, being a farmer, don't feed the weed. So if there's something you don't want growing in your backyard, don't feed it. And it seemed to me that these corporate organisations, and they are corporations, make no mistake, the corporate councils, the corporate police force, the corporate road traffic authority, all of these corporations, they need money. And so I figured, what happens if you stop giving them money? Well, in theory, they need money to survive. And if I stop paying them, if I stop feeding the weed, then the weed starts to have difficulty surviving. And I put my money elsewhere. I said, no, you know what? So when it came to councils, I said to people, listen, if you get a bill from the council and you don't agree with it, and get inverted commas council, meaning corporate council, your nonsense council, your pretend council that thinks they own you, not that council. If you get a bill from them, have a look at the bill. If it's for water and you use the water, well, that sounds fair. If it's for picking up your rubbish bin and conveniently taking it away so you don't have to smell your own rubbish, well, that sounds fair. But if it's for no reason at all other than we just like you to give us the money, well, you can challenge that. Why? Because you're a free person in a free country. You can challenge anybody who claims something against you, including tax, GST, any of these things, because all of these don't come from God. They come from those 400-page documents we talked about earlier.
Which haven't had a cent.
Which haven't had a cent. And I'm like, hello, I dropped a bomb. Go home and read all of them and find out any of them that have a cent. And if they haven't been assented by your queen, you just have to turn up and ring these councils and say, listen, which I do. But here's what the trust does. You're too busy because you're driving a bus. You ain't got time to deal with this nonsense. I mean, the accountant does your tax returns, your lawyer does your litigation, right? So I say to people, listen, instead of you doing it, it was part of an education program where I tried to empower people. I said, look, you don't have the time to learn, to read, 20 years experience. Why don't you just send me the bill? Send it to the trust. Every state has one. We're setting them up in every state. Send it to the Victorian Trust if you live in Victoria, and I will write a letter to the council as your representative. You know, you've got to sign a form to appoint me, of course, but that's technical, that's boring. So I write a letter to the council. I say to the council, I'm happy to pay the bill. I represent my client, happy to pay the bill, no problems at all. Just one question. Show me the contract that binds me to pay the bill. Now, that's the question everyone should be asking, but we're too busy driving our bus. But I've got nothing better to do. So I write to all the councils and I wait for the reply. And invariably it comes. And it's the same old reply that I've heard, in the courtroom. Yup, bullshit. It's 400-page thick act executed by our queen. And then I write the next letter. And you know what that says? Instead of one-liner. Which queen?
Which queen?
Which queen?
Yep.
And that's silence. No more letters. And then I'm like, now what are we going to do? Now we're at checkmate. I mean, what do we do? Someone's got to do something. So either they're going to have to sue, in which case we'll just repeat the process and go into court and was asked the same question in front of a judge who's going to have the same look on their face as you have, like,
Yeah.
he asked the fair question.
Yeah.
Which queen are we talking about, you know? So, and, or they need to leave you alone. Now, I'm waiting for them to issue proceedings because, you know, nothing I like better than a glass of bubbles in the corner of it.
Exactly.
What else am I going to do, you know?
Yep.
There's not much of a conversation with the chickens, you know?
So the trust is running in Victoria. It's set up in South Australia. Is it running yet?
Victoria, yes. South Australia, ASIC, Queensland, New South Wales we haven't got, Northern Territory we haven't got, Tasmania we haven't got, and I might have mixed up Western Australia with South Australia because I always do.
Roger that.
I think I need 4 more, and then there's one in every state, and that's what its job. It only has one job. We only do one thing. We challenge any request for payment, regardless of what it is. Regardless, parking, speeding, tax. Gee, I don't care.
Tolls.
I don't care. Tolls, anything at all.
Land
No,
rates.
tolls are a problem.
Rates.
Yeah, definitely. Land tax, all that nonsense. It's all bullshit. Have a look. Yeah, look, I'll make life easy. Anybody who quotes you an act that's younger than 1973 is absolutely bollocks.
Yeah.
Absolutely hasn't been assented to by our Queen. Prior to that, you got to be careful. Some of them are legit.
Yep.
But if they quote you an act from 1973 forward, 74, 75, 76, 2000, 2001, 2020, you can just say, look, that's really good, but legally it only binds your company and your employees, and I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
Unless you happen to be one of them, and then you're stuffed.
Yeah. That makes a big difference, I assume.
Well, it doesn't count for the people who are part of it. So, yeah, forgot to put the disclaimer in. Yeah, this doesn't apply if you're actually part of that machine. But for those of us who aren't part of the machine, those of us who sworn allegiance to our recently departed Queen.
Recently?
Well, you know,
I heard Sky News say she'd been lying in state for 4 years today.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm operating under a belief. So I have a belief that she's departed.
Yes. We're looking forward to the knowledge, though, aren't we?
We'll have to go dig it up. But yeah, so if I hope she's still here. But whether she is or not, the baton has been passed on now to our king, who's been coronated. Therefore, he is now God's representative, according to our rules, and he's God. Therefore, he needs to assent. So as long as that gentleman doesn't assent to any nonsense, we're all safe.
Well, I think we're all screwed then, aren't we? I mean, he's been assenting to nonsense for years. It's going to be an interesting take. In fact, there is a lot of constitutional issues, I'm told, that are presenting themselves in the UK at the moment. Will those constitutional issues filter to us in Australia, given that the 1901 Constitution was written by the English Parliament?
Well, we're at the bottom of the world. Everything filters down here eventually.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, look, all jokes aside, I know we're in a war. I mean, I'm just trying to do the best we can.
Yeah.
But I understand we're in a war. There is a lot of bad people out there who want to do some really bad things. It's not for today's program. It's not for what we're doing. I understand the realities of our world. So do you. I think all of us know what's going on. The question really is, we can only, in a chess game, you need to wait until your opponent makes a move. And then you make your move. So you and I can ask the question, what moves do you reckon they're going to make next? And you know what? We both might be wrong and we both might be right, but we won't know until they make it. When they do, have the confidence and the strength of heart to say, you know what? We'll deal with that when that arrives. But until then, this is what we have. and let's fix let's deal with what we've got. And that's really the way I look at it. Otherwise, you go insane running scenarios in your head till 3 in the bloody morning.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm running into people like that at every one of these events, people who are losing sleep over all of this. They're lying in bed at night looking at the ceiling and trying to come up with an answer or a way to get through whatever the dilemma there is they're facing at the time. All these dilemmas are being government-made that are laid on them, and people are finding the pressures
Yes.
increasing terribly. All right, so I think there was a little bit of confusion in the states you said you needed to get the trust up in. Is Queensland one of them?
I'm not going to answer that on the advice of my lawyer because I've got a condition and I have to get stuff. So I have to refer to my record. So can I please answer that question in an email? Pass it on, because I don't want to say something that's wrong.
No.
It's happening so quickly. We may have actually voted him in yesterday, and I completely forgot.
Okay.
You know, so.
All right. So could I ask you then, in the coming days, could you send me an email telling me what states you need people to stand up in to help you with this trust? Because I've got people offering to stand up and be part of this from every state in Australia. But there are certain things, as we discussed a couple of days ago, that people need to be aware of. The administrator's job is a big job. Can you explain what the administrator's job or role would be in any trust in any state?
Yeah, this is where we have our difficulty because action requires physical exertion. And we can all talk all day, it's really easy. But actually doing it is hard. And the admin, all trusts are formed by a minimum of 3. You need someone in charge of administration, you need someone in charge of the money, and you need a litigation department. One we've already got, so we need 2.
Yep.
But both those 2 people work because admin gets phone calls. They get people ring up, people ask questions. They need to answer the questions. They have to send emails. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. And there are 26 million people out there looking for a path. And worst case scenario, you'll get 26 million phone calls, not all in one place, but spread out over the whole country.
Yep.
And so when the person puts their hand up, it's a job. And so you don't want to pretend it's not and trick someone into doing it. So admin is a full-on running the administration of the trust, and so too is the treasury. It records everything. We have to report every dollar. You know, it's got to be recorded. It's all legit, you know. So, and the same with me. I've got files a metre high at the moment. I'm on the kitchen floor. I can't see my blinds because that's what's happening. You know, that every day we get more and more and more people sending in stuff, which is great, but it's a job. Same as the mayor. I mean, when people say to you, "Oh, look, we want to set up our own council. We're over this too." I'm like, "Yeah, but who's going to be the mayor? I mean, who's going to put their hand up for that job? Who the hell would do that job?" You know.
Well, somebody who cares about the community, somebody who wants to get in and make a difference.
Well, there you go. You got to find that. You know, it's like finding Nemo.
Yeah,
you got to find that. You got to find that guy in every suburb or that girl in every suburb. Look, I reckon they're there, but we're early days. We only just came up with it a month ago, so we're like, all right. And now here we are talking about it. Now, hundreds of thousands, 10,000 other people have just heard it, which means somewhere out there there's a mayor, or a mayoress, and there's a treasurer out there somewhere. And then as we find them, they need to contact me so that I can inaugurate them and make them the mayor. And then bingo, that suburb is now in good hands because it's run by someone who cares. And that person will be doing what you and I are doing every Wednesday night at 7:00, council meeting.
Yep.
Lamingtons and cups of tea.
And it sounds like a council meeting I could be involved in. I don't drink much tea, but beer goes okay with Lamingtons, I think.
Yeah, well, you know, insert your own beverage, but Lamingtons for sure. No one's coming with it. You've got to have Lamingtons.
Yes.
But I reckon there are plenty of people you can find that can make the Lamingtons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I grew up in a small country town in Victoria, and there's some of the best lamington makers I've ever known came out of the Wimmera, down Victoria. Magnificent. And there was always beautiful creme fraiche in them too. It was wonderful.
Yeah. We should invite, that's how council meetings should be. Instead of buying the lamingtons, we should say, does anyone know how to make a lamington?
Yeah.
And if you need the money, give them 10 cents each between all of us, and they've got $50. They can buy enough flour to make enough lamingtons to feed everyone. And I'm like, whatever happened to that? When did it become a crime to let your grandma make you some lamingtons? I mean, you know, it's just crazy when that became not the thing to do, you know?
My grandmother used to supply the football team with oranges every weekend.
Yeah, well.
Had huge orange trees out the back, and yeah.
Every Sunday, my mum fed we all, you know, every Sunday, it's Mother's Day every Sunday. So the whole clan turns up, and she's up from, you know, Saturday morning cooking, because that's the way it goes, you know, and it's and that's how it is. And that's what kept her alive.
Yeah.
You know, that's what kept fire. You want me to tell you a story?
Oh, of course. Please don't stop. But have another drink. I don't want you to get dry.
I finished. It's and I haven't.
Oh no! New bottle.
Yeah, but it's a sad story. So, do you want to hear a sad story?
Okay. Yes.
Right.
I'm sure it'll have a good meaning to it.
No, it's just a sad story.
Oh, that's a great way to end the show. Fabulous.
Well, I figured it would be my mantra. I'll do a sad story and I'll leave everybody, right?
Right, Joe.
But because I was raised in the village, there was something we did in our village. And what we did was that we were poor. So my grandma would need, every week, she would make a big loaf of bread. She would knead it and she would put it in a big tray. And then she would give it to me, and I would take it down the village street to the one bloke in the village that had a furnace. And everybody put their bread in his furnace.
Wow.
And every yaya, that's what we call them, every yaya made bread for the family. That was her job. The yayas made the bread, and some schlepper like me, the young kids, you know, would carry him down to the we call it a bakery. It wasn't a bakery. It was just a furnace. The guy never made anything. All he did was
start the fire.
Yeah, because we couldn't afford a fire at everybody's house. So he had a big furnace, and that's how our village worked. And then I came to Australia. I'm just a little kid in North Fitzroy, and I'm playing in the street, as you did in those days, because that was our internet. And so we played in the street, and I saw in the distance, in Greece, when a woman's husband dies, she has to wear black, and so we're used to seeing old yayas in black, you know. And I was playing in the street, and I saw this little old lady waddling down the street, looking lost, carrying a big tray, and she called out to me. And she spoke in Greek, and luckily for me, I could understand. And she asked me, young man, where's the furnace? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I got the bread. But I knew what she was talking about, because I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
So she'd spend all day kneading the dough. And she was wandering the street looking for the furnace. And I said, we don't do that, Yaya, in Australia.
In North Fitzroy,
we buy our bread. We buy the bread from the milk bar. And I pointed to the milk bar. And she didn't understand. And she went to the milk bar and she gave him the bread. and he just gave it back to her. And then she walked out, and half an hour later I'm playing in another street, and she's wandering down that street looking for the furnace.
Wow. Well, clearly she'll never find a furnace in North Fitzroy. You've got to go to Coburg for that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, but you were right. That's where they all were.
Oh, the Turks are full of furnaces in Coburg, mate.
So when you say to me, but when I think about the Lamingtons, I'm sorry, but for me, it's that horrible thing of that poor little lady wandering the street, just trying to find a place to put the bread so she could feed her family. No one explained to her, or maybe she just gotten a bit too old and just wanted to find a furnace to remember what it was like. But But I reckon we should go back to the furnaces. We should encourage our yayas to make stuff for us.
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
And eat it first before the packeted food, like eat her jam.
Yeah.
I love it when people pay me in jam. I don't joke. They said, "What's your fee?" I said, "What do you got?" What do you got? Oh, we made some jam. That'll do. You made some salami. Give it a salami. I said, you come to my home, you'll laugh.
Yep.
My fridge is full of other people's stuff.
Yeah, beautiful.
Other people's stuff,
Well, that's how you got the chickens and the goats to run on the farm, isn't it?
That's exactly how I got the chickens and the goats. They donated them to me. I kid you not. And then I donated it to someone else because, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so
Well,
that's why I like the mayors, because the community I reckon our mayors will create the community again, and they should think about bringing back all of our yayas and all of our papas, because those guys have the knowledge. And my granddad taught me more than I ever learned at school.
Yeah, so true.
I don't remember a day in class, but I could tell you things he taught me. I won't today, but I've got plenty of those.
Yeah.
And that's one old man who was a shepherd. He was a shepherd. That was his claim to fame. He sat in the paddocks looking after his sheep. And I learned more wisdom from that guy than class after class after class and book after book. That's my knowledge.
Well, I think you're 100% on the money. I think if we could arrange with our community councils on every Sunday to have a community lunch somewhere in a park.
Now you're talking.
Everybody brings along a sausage or two sausages, one for you, one for somebody else, and 2 bits of bread, one for you, one for somebody else. You are going to make a wonderful community, and you are going to make decisions for your community at those sorts of events. And you'll know that you're empowered because you'll have groups like we've got sitting in here, 150 odd people sitting in here tonight, all sharing a sausage, all sharing a dream, all sharing an ideal, and then making a plan to go out and achieve it. I think this community council idea has got real legs, and we would love to get behind that here, Voice of Freedom, to help promote it anywhere in any town across this country.
Do you know how we built our garage at our house in Thomastown when I was growing up? We didn't have tradesmen. We had cousins and uncles.
Yeah.
And that's how you did shit. We built whole garages. I mean, I kid you not, we built the wall of China if you gave us a chance. I mean, that's what you did. Your weekends were not sitting around, mowing your lawn. You had projects.
Yeah.
And you either went to their place, and all the women got together. They cooked up it was always a feast.
Oh, yeah. Great food.
Home cooked food. Everything was fresh. The kids were out there helping out as well. I mean, I remember at 8 years old working the cement truck because all the able-bodied men had to push wheelbarrows while we were pouring the concrete because we were Greeks. You got to pour concrete. Everything's concrete. So we concreted stuff that wasn't even supposed to, the sheets on the line.
Even the flamingos in the front yard, mate. Yep.
We concreted everything. So, because that's the way you do it, apparently. But that's what you do. And this nonsense about kids not being able to do shit. I mean, you can. An 8-year-old can do stuff if you give him a bloody chance or if you give her a chance. But we're all taught, no, you can't. No, don't touch that. No. Let him try and drive the car. I mean, I did. My dad didn't know, but I did.
Yeah, I didn't ask mine permission much either in those days, I've got to remember.
That's right. You just did it. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. I guess we were raised like that.
Yeah.
So today I'm like,
but weren't our parents shocked when we got in the car for the first time with our L plates on and we knew how to clutch start it?
Yeah.
How did you learn how to do that? Oh, I don't know, Dad. Just came naturally.
I know, reverse parking, no problem. Yeah. I didn't even look.
Oh, I was sliding into car parks in those days, mate. I wasn't reversing into them.
Yes. Well, I could tell you stories, but not on air because there's no statute of limitations on crimes. So I learned most of my driving techniques in other people's vehicles.
Me too. I always found it was best to make my mistakes in other people's vehicles.
Yeah, well, some of them didn't know I was in them at the time. Well, that's just the way it was because I'm like, my man wasn't going to take me anywhere. I said, one less than a month. Are you kidding? I was like, every night a different vehicle. Let's see which one.
Yeah.
That's how you grew up in Tomo. You know?
Yep.
That's how you grew up. That's how you got an education, you know. But,
Yeah. Well, let's hope we can get it back to that in the not too distant future. Spiros, thank you very much for all the information you've imparted tonight. I'll just ask, has anybody got a question for Spiros before we let him go? You'll have to yell out tonight because I haven't got the other microphones. Yes, mate.
So with the CBDC, with the central bank digital currency, how do we fare when it comes to having a mortgage?
With the digital currency that's coming in, how are we going to fare with a mortgage? That's not really anything we've been talking about. Is that at your end of the world?
all right, here's what we're doing about that. We have to open up gold. We have to open up our own banks. 100 years ago, every street had 50 banks in it because banks were all gold backed. Now, to open up a bank, you need 3 people. I'm not even going to bore you with what their titles are. You know what the 3 people are. It's the same 3 people. Anybody can open up a bank, and anybody can open up in their main street a bank and a gold standard bank. Why? Because the first person who comes to deposit their $5,000 in their sock that they've been keeping under the bed for just a rainy day, they walk into your bank, they put in the $5,000, and you immediately buy $5,000 worth of gold. And you put it on the shelf behind you and say, that's your gold. And here's your credit card or your app. You can spend $5,000 of it. When it's gone, that gold's mine. Until then, that's your gold. That's called a gold standard bank. You don't even need money to set the bloody thing up because the depositors provide you with all of the money. Now, once you've got enough sitting behind you, you can then offer lower interest loans to your community. And if you think about it, why wouldn't the mayor, as part of a council program, have their own internal savings and lending like the Commonwealth Bank used to be?
Yes.
It used to be our bank, and now it's just a lot of bonds.
Yep.
And so why don't we just go back to just from grassroots and say, you know what, every community has its own bank in there, or 2 or 3 rival banks competing for business, and we simply deposit our money like we used to could. When I was a kid, I had a money box. I loved it. And then I'd go and then I got a bank book. I gave me a bank book and I could see my 2 cents every week that I deposit my pocket money. And that is how lending was.
Yes.
What this movement is now is an abomination. And it's got to stop. So my attitude is, rather than worrying about what the knuckleheads are doing, ignore the knuckleheads, do the right things now. Just get businessmen who are interested in being bankers and just open up a bloody bank in the main street. I'll give them the first $5,000. I'll put it out to them. First $5,000 and the first one who opens up, I'll deposit my $5,000 into his bank account. Give me my little credit card and I'll only spend what I got.
I can tell you what, I reckon I'm ready to open a Bank of Freedom tomorrow. Why not? You guys want to chip in? Throw something in the donation bucket tonight. If we get an ounce of gold out of it, it's going to be your bank. I'll start it. I promise you.
Good.
We'll start that.
I'm just telling you, there used to be, and I kid you not, I know a joke. Go through your history books if you can even find any. There used to be 50 different banks because anybody could have set up a bank. You know, every town, Western town had a saloon, a bank. It was that town's bank. And that town's bank knew everybody in the town, gave checkbooks, and you could walk into the bank and say, George Smith, the farmer, gave me this check for $20, and you get $20 worth of gold because the bank, that's why you rob banks, because they have gold.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but every problem can be solved because my granddad and your granddad, they had the same problems and they solved them. And all that's happening now is for 70 years, we've had no problems and we've been raised in this nonsense world of believing we need permission and we need consent. I don't need anyone's consent because remember, free country.
Free country, yep.
Free person, free country, free person. Get that in your heart and everything makes sense. Everything makes sense once you remember you were born. I mean, that's why we Greeks came here. Australia was the lucky country.
Absolutely.
It was the lucky country. Jesus, we felt blessed to come here.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing souvlaki and the best fish and chip cookers in the world. Just between you, me, and the gatepost. Yes, sir.
Are there many other lawyers like you that share the same views that you do, or are they all part of the cabal?
Are there many other lawyers like you that share the same views, or are the rest of them part of the cabal?
I think every Australian shares my views. The question is whether they stand up for them.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between me, or I retract that. The difference between us and everybody else is that, like all good Spartans, this is Sparta. You can do whatever you want outside of our boundaries, but once you land in Australia, we fight. We fight. This is Sparta, and if you've got Spartan blood in you, you know what that means. And it could be Scottish blood, and it could be all of it. But we're all the same people. We came here for a reason. We came with nothing. I had a suitcase. It had underpants in it. Some of the people coming today with suitcases, they don't have underpants in them. They got something completely different.
I've got to say, I'm really surprised that a Greek came to Australia with underpants. I would have thought you'd have ouzo in there.
Yeah, no, they weren't my underpants. I was smuggling it for someone else. But eventually I could afford my own underpants. But that's the point. The thing is, I think the answer to that question is, if I sat in a room like I'm doing today, I wish I could see the people, but anyway, if I sat in a room and I could see the faces of the people, I'd see my reflection in all their faces. So I think in the heart of all the lawyers, not that I'm retired, I'm a property developer now, but it doesn't matter. We're all the same, but I don't think everybody has got the courage to just draw the line in the sand and say, that's as far as it goes, mate. You can do whatever you want over there. Don't come for the kids. Don't come for the wife.
Yep.
Don't come for the sheep. Mind you, get pissed off and have a good time, but this is Sparta and that's not. So go over there.
Yeah.
That's what you want to move along.
Yep.
Move along with your ideas.
Move along.
You don't want to. Yeah,
very good.
That's the Aussie way. Just move along, mate.
Anybody else got a question for Spiros?
Would Spiros be interested in training some lawyers who may be interested in crossing?
Would you be interested in training people to cross over, if you like, into your realm of thinking? Lawyers. I don't suppose you can, because they'd have to be. They'd already have to be fully integrated into the cabal system first.
Yes. Well, what is happening is this. When there's a buck, I'll tell you what did happen. There was a friend of mine, unnamed, who was facing some rather serious dodgy charges, incitement and all that. He's a very prominent rebellious individual, right, who fell foul of the authorities. So they slapped him with a whole bunch of stuff. And he eventually came to me, and I explained to him how to get out of it. And here's what did happen. His $10,000 a day barristers took my submissions to their court case, put them up to their judge, and away with the charges. And I'm like, where's my $10,000?
Wow.
So the way it works in my world is that if you find the gold, I'll jump on that, I'll pick it all to pieces, and that's how we train them. So it isn't a case of them learning, it's a case of they're following like crows behind me.
Yeah.
So guys like me win the cases, and then guys like him cash in, and that's the way it works.
Yeah.
So
Seagulls looking for a chip.
Yeah, that's it. Seagulls looking for a chip. That's a better one. Seagulls looking for a chip.
Yeah.
And that's really how it's always been. They're too lazy to do the work. I did the work. I found the laws. And that's why you and I are speaking today, because I did the work.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. You just got to go and do the research. But when I say anyone, you know what I mean. Anyone who knows that.
You've got to do the research. You've got to be able to spend the time, I think, because there is a lot of reading involved, a lot of learning involved, a lot of talking to other people. Spiros, I'm sure you would be very happy to answer questions all night, but I know that there is another bottle of Prosecco somewhere in your house, and it's obviously out of arm reach. So I wouldn't like to delay you further from it. You've been very generous with your time tonight. Thank you very much. And I would love to have you back on the show again in the coming weeks. I know I'm going to get a flood of emails. I'm just going to send them to you, asking what to do about setting up in different states. I'm happy to help in Queensland, in New South Wales, in the Northern Territory. I've got people that are interested too. I can hand those people over. But once again, as you explained, it is a fairly big job, the administrator's job. There is going to be a lot of mail coming in. There will be presumably quite a few checks and fines and notices and all that sort of stuff that will be coming in. So whoever is going to be the administrator is going to need something of a storage facility as well. Or is that something that's looked after? I got asked the question today by someone who was interested in the Treasury side of it, because they are an auditor, an accredited auditor. They love numbers. Really exciting person. But just the kind of person you want to look after the numbers. His first question was, is it a paid position? I said, well, I don't know how it could be paid at the moment, because the only thing I've heard about is people sending in money for paying off their fines, not paying the people they're sending the checks to. So can I assume that this would be a voluntary, or these are voluntary positions initially?
Well, I think at the end of the day, like my predecessors, we lead, all good Spartan Kings lead from the front. We lead by example. I don't charge. And that's what a community is.
Yeah.
Because once you start putting a price on how far you're prepared to go to help your fellow man, then it loses all of the benefit that you sought to gain. The whole point of being a team is we're all the same. We eat from the same bucket. I'm no better than anybody else. As I said, I pulled out Excalibur because I could. As soon as this war's over, I'm putting Excalibur back. I'm not interested. But so my attitude is, I don't want anybody who is looking for a job, because there's plenty of jobs out there. This isn't that. This is, this isn't that. And so you can tell him that at the moment we're not offering any jobs, but we would love all the help we can get.
Well, he's in Peru at the moment, so that particular fella is in Peru. So he's very keen to come back to Australia and help, but I think he's kind of looking for a job as well. So with a bit of luck, it'll work out both ways, and we'll get him back here. Once again, thank you very much for your time tonight, Spiros. I've learned a great deal. I'm sure our viewers and everybody in the room has learned a great deal tonight about the trust, and particularly the community council. So what do you think, folks? Is that something we can get going up here? It's something we really want to get involved with. The Voice of Freedom will get right behind it. It's very difficult for me to become the mayor of anywhere at the moment, because I'm pretty much going everywhere. So I won't be putting myself up for anything like that. And the fact that I'm basically homeless, I can sort of move around the country. I could be the mayor of everywhere, I suppose. We can give it a go. No, the Aussie Cossack wants to be the mayor of everywhere, I think. Yeah. We might just leave that job for you, Spiros. Mate, thank you. Oh, yep.
Really love him tonight for reminding me of the country I remember growing up. And my hope and prayer is that the spirit of Great Southland will rise again. Beautiful.
There's a fellow Greek here, mate, who just wants to express his thanks for you bringing up the memories of the old country. It's really taken him back. That's great, and that he's very hopeful that the spirit of the Great Southern Land is going to rise, and we can feel it rising in here tonight. What we need for it, folks, is to keep rising tomorrow, the day after, the day after, the day after. So hopefully we've got a couple of mayors from a couple of suburbs in here. I know we've got people from Noosa. I know we've got people from Caloundra. We've got people from Gympie, Buderim, Nambour, all over the place. So we've got plenty of potential mayors.
Can I before I do my mic drop, my sad story didn't get me off the hook. So I got one more. I'm going to do a parting comment, not a story, and then I'm going to do the mic drop for real, right? So this is my parting comment. This is an observation. I think I mentioned it to you. I'm going to mention it to everyone in the room. I've travelled the world. I've dined with kings and I've dined with beggars, and I kid you not. I've travelled the world. I've driven in every country. I want to tell you something that only happens in one country in the world. You drive down a main street or country road, barreling along, and in the distance, you see another vehicle travelling in the opposite direction. No idea who the driver is. And then all of a sudden, he flashes his lights at you. Now you know what that means. And you immediately take your foot off the gas and you slow yourself down. And then 100, and as he passes, you give him the good Aussie salute, finger up, finger on the window.
Yeah.
Nothing too fancy,
Yeah.
nothing too fancy.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why they came to Australia first and tried to take us down first. Because the Oracle explained it to me. He said, Spiro, they're taking down Australia because in Australia is where the heart is. And I said, why? He said, because only in this country will a complete stranger go out of his way to warn you about trouble.
Yeah, wow.
That's what we do to other Australians.
Yeah.
And you drive, you watch, you know how many times you see when you drive and you watch that guy flashing his lights at you,
Yep.
warning you about the cop car around the corner, doesn't know who you are, never met you in his life, you're not a mate of his, but for some reason, he's got this bond with you and he's like, mate, I don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah.
And you find me another country where they do that and I'll shut up. But this is the country. This is
Brilliant.
Australia.
Brilliant.
This is Australia. That's who we
Yeah.
are. That's who we are. You can't beat that, really. No one takes that. That's called heart.
Absolutely.
And that's my mic drop. All right? So I'm out.
Thank you and good night. Thank you and good night. Absolutely spectacular. Thank you, Spiros. That's awesome, mate. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed that show. I found tonight to be really interesting. I think we can do a lot with that community council. It doesn't matter where you live, folks. If you didn't get the idea from Spiros by listening, it's pretty easy. You need an administrator, you need a treasurer, you need a litigator. He's already put himself up at no charge to litigate in every state in Australia. We need people to stand up. Well, Queensland looks like it may have been signed up yesterday, so I'll get more details on that. New South Wales, still looking for people there. I know there are people around Singleton who are very prepared to stand up there. And I know that there are people in Sydney who came to the show in Sydney last Thursday night who are very keen to stand up there too. We will give you the details on the Voice of Freedom. Spiros will send this details through to me. But essentially, form yourself. You need an administrator, somebody who's prepared to answer the phone, pick up the mail, and put it in a pile. Keep it safe. Put it in a filing cabinet or wherever you keep things safe. We need a treasurer who needs to be able to take note of every cent that comes in on those checks and where those checks have been placed, what they're there for, who they're meant to be sent to. I suggest that these two people don't have to live together or even in the same town. All this can be done through video conferencing and other ways. So it might be possible to have people living in separate towns fulfilling those two roles in each state. It might be a lot easier logistics-wise if they at least lived relatively close to each other, so regular meetings could be had or whatever. But that's something that we can discuss further down the track. I'd love to see people who are interested here on the Sunshine Coast stepping up into the mayoral roles for community councils. And if you want to learn how to do that, I can hook you up with Darren Bergwerf, who will educate you, well, solidly. He's been in it now, I think, for the last month or more. They've become very busy. He is, being the mayor, he is running around and pressing the flesh, but he's not going to door so much. He's going to businesses and introducing himself there. There is a great initiative that he has also started, Darren Bergwerf, called My Place. Now, Darren just happens to have a huge shed, and he's been in the construction industry, so he's built it in. But every week, he has 150 people turn up at his house for a meeting, every week. And in there are musical instruments. So if you're a bit musical after the meeting, go over, pick up a guitar, sing a song. If you're any good with bongos, go over and play the bongos, preferably in tune with the bloke who's singing the song. There is entertainment for the kids, huge TV viewing rooms, movie rooms, barbecues, beer fridges, importantly. where everybody gets to stand around once a week and talk about their community. They have those discussions and then they make a plan and they move forward from there. This can happen here and we can do it in a park. Where are the guys? Budrum, Camillo's got his common law group. That's one group to be part of. There's another group standing. Where are you, madam? I saw you there Thursday, tomorrow night at Cotton Tree. These are places where you want to be turning up. Cotton Tree Park tomorrow night. Budrum, when's your next meeting? Sunday, Camillo. 25th, 9 a.m. at 176 Ballinger Road. Budrum.
Another thing, Carl.
Yes.
I'm also involved with a gentleman called Glenn. He calls himself the Manayan Way and Guardianship Housing. He's designed a housing program where for $1 you can buy a house, be part of a village.
Where the hell was he when I needed housing?
The website's called
guardianshiphousing.com. All right, folks, don't know if you heard all of that. There is a gentleman, guardianshiphousing.com. Guardianshiphousing.com. $1 houses, loans to get into houses, that sort of thing? Or how?
Basically, you look after the house.
You look after the house.
And you participate in the community.
Work in the community,
And
and that's how you pay off the house. So it's building a community and you get a house out of it.
Yeah.
I need a house. You tell me where that community is. I'll be there. I'm not much good with hammer and nails, but give me a ride on mower. I'm bloody awesome. Yeah, all right, very keen. That's something I would really be keen to help promote too, because the housing crisis that's happening and confronting us all at the moment, unless you own your own home, it is significant. We're told here on the Sunshine Coast there are 2,500 people sleeping rough in cars along the beaches here every night. I don't know, people from Noosa, people from Coolum, Perigian. I know up that way there's been quite a few cars on the beach roads up there. The coppers aren't moving people on, thankfully. They were. If you've been at Aussie World, for those folks who know Queensland, Aussie World is out on the main highway headed north, the Bruce. There is a big car park that they've developed across the road from Aussie World, across the freeway. Out there every night, there's probably 20 or 30 vehicles camped out there every night. Some of them stay there for days on end. Some of them move on, go and find another car park. I think you can stay there for a few days without being hassled. But every night there are 20, 30, sometimes 50 or more vehicles out there. That's how bad this situation is. So guardianhousing.com, if you're in that sort of a situation and you're looking to, guardianshiphousing.com, I'll get that right, beg your pardon. Guardianshiphousing.com. If you're in that situation and the idea of getting into a house and building a community works for you, go and explore it. I don't know where the communities are, don't know where the villages are, but let's face it, if you need somewhere to live and you need people around you, as Spiros was saying, it takes a village to raise kids these days. So it could be a really, really great place to, always did. Yeah, always did. And it wasn't the best kind of raising. You know, I wonder why that's why the predominant demographic of my audience is over 50, because we've experienced that. We grew up with that. Whereas everybody, no, maybe not everybody, but those who are under 40 certainly have never been exposed to those sorts of things. So, yeah, it's a bit of a rough time. So guardianshiphousing.com, go and check that one out. I haven't had a look yet, but I certainly will be having a look a little bit later. Any more questions for me, folks, before we let everybody go off to bed? I've been going for nearly 2 hours. So nothing for me? You're all bored? Oh, no, yes, sir? Oh, yes. Yes.
Now, you made a statement in that show that really did concern me, and I think it should concern a hell of a lot of other people.
Right.
It was to do with the water level in the two dams.
Ah, okay. You're talking about Victoria? So you're talking about Lake Eildon and Lake Hume, or the Hume Dam. No, Victorian dams. Talking about the snow runoff. Yep. 95% the Hume Dam is currently sitting at. No, sorry, beg your pardon. The Hume Dam is at 100%. 95% is what Lake Eildon is. In the past, they usually drop the water in Lake Eildon to 75 or 70%, and they do that through the winter months. They just increase the flow rate. It puts a bit more water down the Goulburn. The Hume puts a bit more water down the Murray. This year, for some reason, they've decided not to open the gates. So they've left Lake Eildon at 95%. Now, I don't know if people know Victoria. Lake Eildon is at the foot of the Victorian Alps. So when the melt comes, and this year Victoria has had the largest snow season in its history, and they even had more snow last weekend. When the melt comes, and that'll come this weekend, when all that rain system hits the snow, that's going to start melting the snow real fast. And all that water is going to run down the mountains, run down the creeks, and run straight into the Hume and run into Lake Eildon. Where is it going to go? It's going to flood the Goulburn Valley. The whole citrus growing area, that food bowl through there, is in great danger from Echuca south. Yes, mate.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 days ago, my youngest daughter and her bloke came back from a trip to Wagga, drove through Goulburn.
Yep.
5 days ago, already the paddocks and the back streets are filling up.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that driving down to Singleton and around out of Sydney, we went out to Katoomba and had a bit of a look out there too. There is a lot of water already down there. The ground is already soaked. So it's not going to soak anything up. It is just going to lie on top. So, yeah, they're working hard at us. And if anybody's been watching Robert Deutsch recently, Robert's been, been working very hard on both New Zealand and Australia. And look, while Robert is an interesting soul, and I've had some interesting dealings with him myself, I don't think you'll ever see him on my program, not because I won't have him, but he won't come. He is very smart when it comes to the weather. And I've yet to see anything out of him that's failed. So, yeah, very strong indeed. So if that's it, folks, let you go. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful being here tonight. Thank you. If you have thrown in $1 into our bins, I tell you what, if I get enough for an ounce of gold tonight, I will go and buy an ounce of gold on Friday and we'll start a bank. You can all have a credit card for $1 each. How's that? It'll work that well. Thanks, mate. Thanks. So thanks, folks. And you guys at home too. Thank you very much for your night. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Going to have a bit of a chat with Fitz tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Magna Carta 1215 and some of the rather interesting things that have been coming into play recently. There are a number of thoughts going around, and if you're a Dick Yardley follower, you might want to be watching tomorrow night. We're going to have a fun
You let
night.
one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!